Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the monthly Samurai and Ninja Topics series. Since we have so far covered armor from head to ankle, admittedly very superficially and not all the pieces, this month we will be talking about footwear. Clothing is one of the numerous things I plan to talk about in my main videos, so this will come up again. For this video though, I'm going to give a basic answer to the question in the title. What would a samurai wear on his feet into battle in the Sengoku period by introducing a couple of the main types. Chris Glenn clarified a couple of things for me, and another YouTuber, Mekugi, looked at part of the script. So I will link Chris's Facebook group, Samurai History and Culture Japan, and Mekugi's YouTube channel in the description. The base for the most common type of footwear among samurai on the battlefield in the Sengoku period were Waraji. Waraji are sandals that were at the time made by braiding and weaving rice straw together. They could be made by the people who were going to wear them. They could have been part of the goods required by a samurai as rents or taxes, or for those that had the money, they could be purchased from merchants and made by professionals. So the quality of a waraji could vary. Waraji were worn by wrapping the straw cords around the foot and the heel ankle area and then tying them off. I typically have seen them tied off either a little above the ankle or on the top of the foot. Often they did not completely cover the toes, leaving the toes to hang over some, although this could be adjusted sometimes with how they were worn. I am not sure why they were commonly worn this way. I have heard that they were worn like that so that samurai could feel the ground and push off with their toes. However, this seems to have been the common way for wearing them across social classes, and not just in military situations. I have no real plausible alternative, though, other than to say that's just how they developed. Of course, the usual way that they were worn does not negate the existence of variations of how to wear and tie them. On the battlefield, these would be useful as their braided and rough texture would provide extra traction in the dirt, and the mud and other things one may encounter on the ground. Although they are no longer common footwear, waraji are still in use today for specific situations, such as in reenactments. Some people wear them in festivals. Buddhist monks wear them on pilgrimages sometimes, and practitioners of Shugendo wear them at times. Poor samurai might have gone into battle with waraji on bare feet. These would be the poorer end of the provincial samurai, the jisamurai and kokujin. Now, I cannot say for sure if this happened or how common it was. I do not recall reading anything about this, but I want to think that I have seen this in iconography, which to be fair is not always completely accurate. And it is also possible that I am misremembering seeing an image of an ashigaru, so do not quote me on this. But I wanted to bring up the possibility and also to remind you that not all samurai were the super rich. While they would typically be wealthier than the peasantry, some of them were barely so. The bulk of what could be called the samurai class was made up of these provincial warriors. What was by far the most common footwear in the Sengoku period, though, was waraji worn with tabi. Waraji are notorious for being harsh on bare skin until they are either softened and broken in or beaten vigorously to soften them. They can cause itching, rash, nasty blisters, and even open wounds. Tabi are split-toed footwear. It separates the big toe from the other toes. They are very well suited to be worn with the various kinds of sandals that were common footwear in pre-modern Japan. The most common style came up to a little above the ankle, but there are others that go higher, and I'm talking about traditional tabi, not the modern versions of tabi shoes or boots. Modern traditional tabi today usually have metal clasps in the back to keep them closed, unless they are intentionally made in the old style. In the Sengoku period, though, they had kind of flaps that would overlap either on top of the foot or on the side, and then they would be tied closed. Most tabi were made of cloth, and they could come in various solid colors, as well as have different designs on them. Sometimes tabi might have had leather soles. Of course, this depended on what one could afford. There were also tabi that were completely made of rawhide or leather, leather being more preferable as it was more durable, but it was also more expensive. Japan began importing rawhide from China in large quantities in the 15th century, so it did become more available. Domestically, by far the most common source of skins would have been deer, followed by other game animals. Wealthy and high-ranking samurai seem to have preferred wearing leather tabi with waraji when going into battle. The highest level, I guess you could say, of footwear was one that actually was not worn in the battlefield during the Sengoku period, but I will mention them all the same. These were kegutsu. These were boots made of hemp or linen and or leather or rawhide, and were covered in fur or hair. The most common kind of fur would have been deer and bear, with horse and yak hair being the most common hair options. These were common among commanders in the late Heian period, but their popularity began to wane in the Kamakura period. They were so expensive that they really were only an option for the very wealthy samurai. By the Sengoku period, they were relegated to mostly ceremonial and formal purposes, even for those who could afford them, if they were worn at all. However, a commander might, if he could afford them, wear these boots in the head viewing ritual after battle, as one example in which these may have been worn. But again, in terms of battle wear, no, these were no longer used. That was a rather quick introduction to the most common types of footwear worn by samurai in the Sengoku period in battle. Basically, Waraji with some kind of tabi, depending on one's wealth. I hope that you enjoyed it. If so, please consider sharing, leaving a like, and possibly subscribing. I look forward to seeing your comments down below. Thank you so much for your time. I hope to see you in the next video. For now, please take care.